Hey, I'm Blair Best, and tonight on The Story, we begin in Northeast Portland, right outside what neighbors call the car crash house. After years of community complaints and cars crashing into this home, one recently even causing it to catch on fire, PBOT is finally making changes to the road. It's our big story tonight. There's a sharp 90-degree turn where Northeast Weidler Street meets 24th Avenue. It catches many drivers by surprise, missing the turn completely and barreling into this apartment building instead.
From what I'm told, it's called the car crash house.
This latest crash, Christmas Eve. This car went into the front porch, broke the gas line, and started a massive fire. Neighbors recall flames reaching 20 feet in the air. This former tenant lost everything.
I mean, my living room is gone. My couch is melted. My chairs are melted. My cat Lucille was in the fire. She died.
To this day, the building remains empty and charred. Between repairs and lost rent, the crash cost the property owners more than $900,000. That's according to a lawsuit they just filed against the city of Portland and Northwest Natural Gas, asking for $1.2 million, alleging the city and the gas company failed to protect the property from these types of crashes. The lawsuit claims Portland and Northwest Natural knew or should have known that the traffic control signage and construction of the intersections at the property was insufficient to properly warn drivers and to reasonably or meaningfully prevent car crashes. Northwest Natural acted with a reckless and outrageous indifference to a highly unreasonable risk of harm.
People shouldn't have to live with, threats like this.
Dylan Rivera, a spokesperson for Portland Bureau of Transportation, walks us through what's now finally being done.
We're redesigning the roadway to lead people to drive more slowly.
That includes installing a flashing speed reader.
15 is the advisory speed for this curve.
Reducing the lanes from 2 to 1, adding fresh paint around the bike lane and crosswalks.
You see those arrows there? That's a buffer.
And increasing parking with a purpose, Rivera says.
It's also going to provide a physical signal to people who are driving through the area to slow down and provide a physical barrier between them and the parking strip and the sidewalk.
I know some neighbors in the past have asked for concrete barriers along this way. Why go the car route as opposed to concrete barriers?
We're actually going to put some boulders in here.
Okay.
And additional signage as well.
Over the years, neighbors tell KGW they have counted some 30 times a car has crashed into the property. Portland Fire data shows in the last 2 years, they've responded 6 times. During the Christmas Eve crash, firefighters were unable to quickly find the gas shutoff valves, causing delays in stopping the flames. That's according to the property owner's lawsuit.
It's a shame because it's a beautiful house and people were just usually under the influence of alcohol or whatever late in the evening or early morning hours, and they just drove too fast and weren't paying attention.
John has lived next door for the past 25 years. He supports PBOT's changes.
Well, I think it's terrific. It really slows down the traffic. People are much more aware of that this is a residential area, not just a commercial area.
Other longtime neighbors, like Kay,
it makes it very congested.
Aren't so sure it'll make a difference.
But I don't like what they've done. Cutting it basically from 3 lanes into 1 is not going to help, I don't think. Because I think everyone's just going to be really trying to rush through it, and I don't see that it'll help.
It's worth noting the city is limited in what it can do.
This is a place where it's always been tricky.
Because this street is a designated emergency transportation route, so things that could slow first responders, like speed bumps, are not allowed. Those at PBOT believe they are doing all they can to give the neighborhood what it's been waiting for.
This is bringing order to some chaos.
While PBOT might think they're fixing the problem, going off of the property owner's lawsuit, it's clear they believe the city should have taken steps to improve safety there much sooner. All of the involved parties, the property owners, city, and Northwest Natural, told me they are not going to comment on pending litigation. PBOT officials tell me they're spending around $30,000 on safety improvements for the dangerous 90-degree turn and another $25,000 on other safety improvements on Weidler leading up to that turn. Now, that money is coming from Portland's Clean Energy Fund. And there are many dangerous intersections like this across the city. In fact, this one doesn't even come close to being the worst. PBOT tells me it's not even among the top 30 worst intersections.
I can't even imagine what the other intersections are like. If this one, a house is catching on fire after cars keep crashing into it.
Right. Yeah, there are intersections all over the city where we have patterns of pedestrian fatalities, people on bikes getting injured, people in vehicle-to-vehicle crashes that are killing people or producing life-altering injuries. Essentially, the need outstrips our resources to address the issue.
Okay, so talk to us. What's your take on these changes? Or maybe you know about another hotspot for crashes that you want us to look into. Email us, thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Well, of course, we cannot ignore the major sports news today. The Portland Trail Blazers have a buyer who intends to keep the team in Rip City. Tom Dundon is the owner of NHL's Carolina Hurricanes, and if all the procedural dominoes fall without a hitch, he'll own the Blazers as well. Sports business platform Sportico was the first to report the purchase price is about $4.25 billion. The deal still has to be approved by the NBA's Board of Governors. That will likely take a few months. As far as Dundon's approach to owning a sports franchise, a reporter who covers the Hurricanes for our sister station in North Carolina says fans should expect someone who's dedicated to winning.
You know, he might not have the most traditional ways about going about building teams, but he knows what he's doing. So, you know, if you want a successful guy owning your team, you got him.
Again, this deal is far from being finalized, but in the months since the team was listed for sale, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said the Blazers likely will need a new arena, considering Moda is one of the oldest in the league that has gone without any major renovations. So, if Dundon plans to keep the team in Portland long term, the franchise's future could hinge on getting a major project like that done, which of course will not be cheap.
The NBA really does believe in the market with the right owner and with the right situation. I think a lot of this is going to come down to the arena. And I'm sure they'll seek public money. They'll likely seek public money. Who knows if they're going to get it? But I think a lot of this is going to come down to what it costs and how easy or how difficult is it to get a building in Portland done that is what a modern day 2026 NBA team needs.
Now let's turn to some of your thoughts on our big story from last night, looking at Portland Mayor Keith Wilson's plan to address homelessness. He presented updates to a city council committee talking about tent distribution, not enforcing the camping ban, and new emergency shelter beds that are online now, with more on the way. And then we brought you Councilor Angelita Murillo on the show live to talk about her thoughts on the mayor's plan and what she wants to see in regards to homelessness moving forward. Okay, if you missed the show last night, you can watch it anytime on our streaming app, KGW Plus, or the KGW YouTube channel. Now, the mayor is leaning heavily on overnight shelter beds and day centers, while Councilor Murillo says she would like to see more emphasis on getting people into long-term housing rather than shelter. Now, several of you have thoughts about that. Mark wrote, "The mayor is doing more than most, and thankfully he's displaying remarkable perseverance against the naysayers. The issue was long enough in the making, and unfortunately solving it won't happen fast enough to suit almost anyone."
Instead of worrying about how to get people into housing, why don't we worry about getting them to work so they can pay for their housing? So the rest of us that do work and have work are out here paying all the bills. I don't want to buy their housing forever. You fools just keep talking about buying their housing. Put them to damn work. That should be the goal, putting them to work and then helping them with housing.
Matt wrote to us saying, how do you get people in a long-term housing when they are drug addicts or have mental health issues? At least the mayor is making an effort to try and get people shelter in the short term.
I'm just curious why we don't have job training when we talk about all the housing that needs to come into downtown Portland, but there's no requirements for anyone or drug-free or work ethic, anything that goes into that vein. It's just a free place to stay. We spend a lot of money doing that, but we don't really have a plan. Just giving someone a place to stay isn't going to fix anything.
And how about this from Paula? As a downtown resident, I am totally disgusted at the way Portland looks. I have lived here 5 years, and it is more disgusting than ever. Coming from a large city in the Midwest, I find this appalling. At some point, the governing body of this city is going to have to put the taxpayer first, or there won't be anyone here to pay for all these grandiose ideas. Now, since the mayor is leaning so heavily on shelter beds in his plan, we asked Councilor Murillo what she would do about people who refuse shelter. Here's part of what she said.
I think that we need to be asking people why they're refusing shelter. Some people have told me about shelter conditions that are really brutal, that they don't want to be in. I had lunch with houseless youth in my district just last week, and they were telling me about how some of the shelters have black mold that the shelter system simply paints over so you don't see it, but it's still there. People get scabies, people get lice, people with disabilities have a really hard time accessing the shelter spaces. People also sometimes experience theft or physical violence. There are a lot of reasons why it is actually safer sometimes when you're an unhoused person to have some autonomy and maintain control when you're on the street than there is within a shelter system. And the fact that that is even something that I have heard repeatedly from unhoused people and that I experienced myself means that we need to do something to rectify the shelter system and why people don't want to use our resources in the first place.
A viewer named John wrote to us about that. He says, all carrot and no stick. After all of the services are offered, for those who still insist on living on the streets, there has to be a penalty. Lockup has to be in the equation. We can't continue to allow each individual to decide whether or not they will negatively impact the rest of us.
I have a cousin that's been homeless for 30 years by choice, and he says everything she said about the shelters. I don't know why we can't just move people to one area and then fix the problem. We're allowing an extreme minority, mentally ill minority, to rule over a city of law-abiding people. It doesn't make sense, and it can be done if people will just step on some minor rights for now, get them out of the way, then fix it.
Okay, coming up next on the story, our Environment Northwest series looking at glaciers continues. Tonight, we hear from an expert about the impacts here at home from polar glaciers melting. You might be thinking it's all about sea level rise, but there's much more to it than that. We're back right after this. Our Glaciers on Thin Ice series continues tonight as scientists across the Pacific Northwest are wrapping up their summer research, many finding that glaciers are melting at record speed. Our Environment Northwest team has team coverage from across the region where effects from that melting are happening already. Jude Binkley is outside of Boise tonight, showing us how changes in distant polar ice can disrupt ocean currents, climate, and even our water supply.
Melting glaciers can mean much more than rising sea levels. Research reveals it also fundamentally changes the ocean's circulation, temperature, and chemistry in ways that could impact the coasts right here in the Northwest. The Earth's glaciers hold massive amounts of frozen water, and as they melt at unprecedented rates, they're creating unexpected consequences for our oceans.
And the ice sheets have these huge amounts of liquid water locked into them. It's frozen right now. But if it melts, it goes out in the oceans, and that causes sea level to rise.
Glaciologist Ellen Inderlin at Boise State University uses satellite imaging to track how fast icebergs are melting. That meltwater is already reshaping ocean systems and influencing conditions along the Pacific Northwest and beyond.
And the icebergs go out in the ocean, float away, and you can imagine they're little pockets of fresh water. So they're frozen pockets of fresh water that are drifting out in the ocean and eventually melt, and they spread that fresh water out.
The ocean's waters circulate through what's called the global ocean conveyor belt, a system that moves heat from the equator toward the poles.
So by the time it gets up towards these polar regions, so top of the Earth, bottom of the Earth, it's really salty. And that salt is actually what makes it dense, it makes it heavy. And so that makes the water sink, and then that drives this global ocean circulation.
As ocean water moves toward the poles, heat causes it to evaporate, leaving behind saltier, heavier water. That dense water sinks, helping to drive a global circulation system that regulates climate. But when glaciers melt, they release huge volumes of fresh water, which can slow or even disrupt the flow of ocean currents.
If we pump out too much ice out into the oceans from Greenland and Antarctica, and depending on sort of where it melts, how it gets mixed in, it can slow down or actually shut down global ocean circulation.
That shift in ocean flows could have far-reaching consequences for global climate patterns, and the Pacific Northwest is feeling the impact. In Idaho, earlier snowmelt and reduced summer stream flow are straining irrigation systems in the Boise River Basin, impacting crops. And in Washington State and Oregon, shrinking glaciers feed rivers and coastal waters, affecting salmon runs, hydropower, and even drinking water.
Our climate influences things like where we can grow crops. So we alter ocean circulation, that's going to change our atmospheric circulation, which is then going to even change like our long-standing agricultural practices.
Jude Binkley, Environment Northwest.
And tomorrow on The Story, we take you to eastern Washington in the heart of the Yakima Valley, where farmers are in the midst of another drought. We'll explore the connection between the valley's dry conditions and the vanishing glaciers in the mountains above. Part 4 of our series tomorrow night, right here on The Story. And coming up next, no, that bright green in the Willamette River is not some kind of radioactive material. It's an algae bloom that returns year after year whenever we get periods of hot weather. It's dangerous for both people and pets. And we'll tell you how this one got started around a century ago. That's when The Story returns.
Well, it is that time of year. The KGW School Supply Drive is going on now. And this week, you can donate at the register of any Safeway store. Your donations stay local and support your neighborhood school district. And all this week, Rick's Custom Fencing will match the first $5,000 donated, doubling your donation and helping more students. We want to thank On Point Community Credit Union, Safeway, and Rick's Custom Fencing for everything they're doing to make this year's supply drive a success. Well, a lot of effort has gone into making the Willamette River swimmable again, but just about every summer, that effort gets undermined when the heat causes algae to bloom in the Ross Island Lagoon, and sometimes that algae spreads up the river to where you swim. Now, as you can see from this drone footage, the algae is in full bloom now in the lagoon, making the water bright green. The advocacy group Human Access Project has been trying to fix the issue for years, but they say they aren't getting much help from the state. The issue can be traced back about 100 years. Back then, Ross Island was actually 3 separate islands. They were joined together in the 1920s when the Army Corps of Engineers created an embankment connecting them. In 1926, Ross Island Sand and Gravel started excavating gravel from the island, allowing the water in the lagoon to become stagnant. So now, when it gets hot and sunny, the algae containing harmful bacteria grows in the lagoon. If that spreads to other parts of the river, it's dangerous for people, especially pets. 2 years ago, the Northwest Environmental Defense Center sued Oregon's Department of Environmental Quality over this algae problem.
We ended up reaching a settlement with DEQ that basically required them to require Ross Island Sand and Gravel throughout the hot summer months to take certain water quality measurements that help us monitor and better anticipate when the cyanobacteria comes to a level that is harmful to human health and also dogs. And a big crux of that settlement was the requirement that when there is a harmful algal bloom, Ross Island needs to deploy a boom to contain the harmful algal bloom and also skim along the lagoon to make sure that they're collecting that cyanobacteria.
She says it doesn't appear that the settlement is being followed. Our team toured the lagoon earlier this week.
By the looks of it, there is an algal bloom that is proliferating within the lagoon, and it has yet to be deployed. A boom has yet to be deployed. We're not entirely sure what Ross Island's compliance with the ongoing monitoring has been, and that kind of frustrates the entire purpose of the agreement that we reached with DEQ, which was to allow us to be able to be more proactively responsive to avoid a situation where we have an algal bloom that spills out into the Willamette and eventually reaches Cathedral Park, for example, like we've seen in years past.
The Oregon Health Authority issued a recreational use advisory from the Ross Island Lagoon all the way downriver to Wapato Bridge and Kelly Point Park. They say DEQ took samples and photos confirming the algae bloom, and they say people should stay out of the water. That advisory is also supposed to trigger that boom in the lagoon itself. But the long-term solution, according to the Human Access Project, is to separate Ross Island once more, to dig a channel through that embankment that the Army Corps built a century ago and allow water through to flush out the lagoon naturally. But Willie Levinson, the organization's leader, says he's having a hard time getting the state to help out with that plan.
I'd like to have an answer to what the governor's office plan is to fix this problem. This is something the Human Access Project has been working on with Oregon State University and a broad group of stakeholders since 2017. We are a 1.5-person nonprofit. We should not have the burden of driving this. We have been driving it since 2017. We've fundraised close to $1 million to bring a solution to this problem. When we started the work, it was an accepted opinion that it would be impossible to put a channel through the lagoon. Through very hard work, we have done a $150,000 advanced hydraulic model that proves proof of concept that was peer reviewed by 2 academic institutions that putting in a channel will solve this problem.
Human Access Project also brought the issue to the legislature. House Bill 3314 would have provided money to mitigate the algae. It died in committee. Well, that's the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air it at 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. on our TV app KGW Plus, which you can download for free right now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, have a great Wednesday night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.